In this video of the model module of our GA4 Immersion training course, what we're going to look at is what we see when we open up the advertising workspace in GA4. So let's go ahead and do that straight away. Let's go into GA4, and on the left-hand side on the workspace menu, let's select advertising. Now, when we click that, we get taken into the advertising snapshot, and everything looks relatively familiar, especially if you've used the reports workspace before. Now, before we jump in and look at some of the reports, let's take a look at some of the features and the functionality that's available in this workspace. Starting at the top right, we do have our date range picker. And the date range picker is what we are used to. It's got all of the options that we're familiar with from the reports workspace. The only thing to note is that we can't compare date ranges here. Moving over to the left-hand side at the top, we can add filters. And this works in the same way as well. We can add a filter to include or exclude any specific dimension, and then we can select our values from the list underneath. The new thing for this workspace, though, next to the filter option, is the conversions dropdown. Now, this workspace is only looking at converting user journeys, but the thing about conversions and their journeys is that not all of them are going to be relevant to being looked at together. So, for example, a converting user journey leading up to a purchase might look and act completely differently to signing up to, for example, a newsletter. So this dropdown enables us to just pick the conversions and thus the journeys to those conversions that we want to look at in these reports. So, for example, here there's a number of conversions selected. They are all added by default, but I can just pick one, for example, the purchase conversion. So now I'm looking at all user journeys that lead up to a purchase event.
Now, if you're looking at this report and you're wondering why you can't access anything, or if you're looking at it, it looks like a bit of a ghost town, it might be because you either A, don't have a Google account connected like Google Ads, or you don't have any key events set up. Now, if you want to learn more about key events and conversions, check out the link in the descriptions to a deep dive just on that.
So let's have a look at the snapshot that we've landed in this workspace. This acts exactly the same as any overview report. It's built up of a collection of overview charts. There's only a handful here. The whole workspace isn't very big. There's a handful of reports and thus cards that we can have a look at. One thing to note, though, on this report is that the insights section is just looking at insights relating to the performance of our marketing channels and the contributions they're making in the user journeys.
So let's jump in and use the main report we're going to be looking at in this workspace, which is the Planning All Channels report. Now, this is actually quite familiar if you're used to reporting in the reports workspace. We have our charts at the top of the report and we have our nice data table at the bottom. The controls we can do in here are very familiar and similar as well. We've got our primary dimension, which we can change using the dropdown. It defaults to the channel group, but we can swap that out to any of the UTM parameters we're using, for example, source, medium, campaign. One thing to note here, though, is that there's no prefix. We're not looking at the session default channel group or the first user default channel group either. These don't have a prefix, and the reason for that is because this report and all of the reports in this workspace are using the attribution model that's set at the property level.
Now, in most cases, that's going to be data-driven attribution because that's the default Google Analytics sets. However, just note that that can be changed. So Google Analytics 4 has a property level default attribution model that has been defined, but you can change it, and it does affect a couple of different reports and features throughout GA4. So I've done a whole deep dive video that I've linked to in the description of this video that you can explore exactly what it is, how we can change it, and where we can access the data. Now let's take a look at some of the metrics that are available in this detail report.
The first column we have is our key events, and these are the conversions that we've defined in our property settings, and we can select the specific key events that we want to look at using that drop-down picker at the top left of the screen. We also have cost data in this report as well as revenue. The cost data is where it's imported automatically from our connected Google products, for example, Google Ads and the Google Marketing Platform tools. With this, we can see things like return on ad spend and, of course, the cost per key event as well.
Now, if you wanted to get your non-Google cost data into Google Analytics, you can do as well. You just have to do that manually. It's easy to say you can import costs, but exactly how do you do that? Cost data in GA4 is going to be a really important metric, especially when measuring our performance marketing data. So I've done a whole deep dive video that I've linked in the description that shows you how we can import cost, the process we go through, and where it will be available. So that's it in a nutshell. That's what this report has to offer: a view of conversions and some cost data and some variations of those. Now, there's something you might have noticed that's not in this report that you might have expected, and that's things like total sessions or users, or even things like engagement rate. And that's deliberate that it's not available, because this workspace just looks at converting user journeys. That kind of data is not available. It doesn't have a view of those non-converting user journeys. You will have to go into the reports workspace to get at that information. That's it for this video. Join me next time when we're going to jump into the conversion paths report and see what insights that can uncover for us there.